So welcome to sound walls, what they are and how to use them. This is looking at sound walls as a tool for teaching reading, focused on decoding, and looking at how that fits into our curriculum. We acknowledge that we are on traditional treaty lands, home of Métis, Inuit, and other diverse Indigenous peoples, whose ancestors have marked their territory since time immemorial, a place that has welcomed many peoples from around the world to make their home here. So thank you again for coming. I don't know if I've met any of you or whether I've done a session on something lately and suggested our session today. But let me just turn off the waiting room sounds. Apologies for that. Doesn't always. Trying some new things here and again, see if it helps. Okay, so my name is Kelly Gibbs. I'm a teacher. I've been a consultant as a reading specialist. I worked in regular program class, special needs programming for students with learning disabilities, for students with mild cognitive delays. And I spent my career with Edmonton Public as a, well, I was there 37 years. And so when I left, I really wanted to do something different. So one of the things I'm doing is working as a learning facilitator with ERLC. I'm also a sessional instructor at the University of Alberta, working with our pre-service teachers. I love stories and I love to tell stories, and sound walls is one of my favorites. My son is Chris, and there's his little dog with him, Sky. And then I have my little fur babies. Harper is the black and white, and she is 7, and Coco is a feisty 2-year-old. They are both miniature Bernedoodles, and then big chunky cat. This is a book called P is for Pterodactyl, the worst alphabet book ever. Definitely this does take the use of a word wall and the use of sounds and symbols to a different level, and maybe for upper elementary, junior high. But for you, it's maybe there is something to this. So let's have a listen. We won't hear the whole book.
P is for Pterodactyl, the worst alphabet book ever, by Raj Haldar and Chris Carpenter. A is for aisle. The bread aisle has not been cleaned in eons, and 9 tiny beasts meet to have a feast. B is for delium. We doubt anyone knows what delium is, but it's the only word dumb enough to begin with a silent B. C is for czar. Shh, the fascinating czar is secretly part Czech. D is for Djibouti. The boat race begins when the handsome judge from Djibouti drops his handkerchief from the bridge. E is for you. Eileen the ewe was so euphoric the wolves were eaten, she even gave the eulogy.
So I think at this point you are seeing what is the point of this book. It is to look at words and the exception of how they sound and how they are spelled. And so this is a way that we can look at using sound walls to be able to alleviate that difficulty. And it's not for every word in the world. And even though we talk about jail words or words that don't follow the rules, we talk about how do we teach those rather than doing it by visual memory. So today we're going to talk about the curriculum connections that support the use of a sound wall, how sound walls to me become a very efficient way of teaching curriculum. I do know that sound walls require a real shift in approaching decoding and reading. We're going to look at the purpose of a sound wall, implementing it in a way that will hopefully work for you, and look at a scope and sequence that supports this instruction and the discussion of assessment. Now, this is today and next week's session as well. So it's not all going to be in one place. So I wanted to talk about structured literacy. When we talk about a program and we move away from what is considered a balanced literacy framework, the framework of structured literacy has a number of components that are very identifiable according to skill and what is necessary. So we start with phonological awareness, and we'll talk more about that. Phonics and word recognition, fluency, vocabulary, listening and reading comprehension, and written expression. So all of this, you could say, constitutes our curriculum. Not every piece of the curriculum, but a good part of it. Well, let's talk about phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is necessary to building strong reading skills. Phonemic awareness is key. Phonemic awareness is the ability to separate and manipulate spoken sounds, and it includes the manipulation of words and sentences. Let's go a little deeper into that. Phonological awareness as a term is an umbrella term. So we look at phonemic awareness that fits underneath the phonological awareness umbrella. It is the piece that is only about sound, not about letters. And I say over and over again to teachers that we want to go with sound first, as opposed to letter and then try to figure out the sound. We're going to start with the sound. And in decoding, that actually can create a really strong link to that letter connection and makes it more meaningful to kids. So phonemic awareness then is the ability to hear and manipulate the sounds, the phonemes in the words. It is understanding that spoken words and syllables are made up of these sequences of sounds. So for example, the word cat. We can look at the word cat and say, okay, what are the sounds that you hear? We're going to do phoneme segmentation. K, t. Now I'm going to give you the sounds and I want you to blend them. Cat, sorry, at, cat. Now we're blending them. Phoneme manipulation, we're going to change. We're going to put the k and we're going to move it to the end of the word. And we're going to change the end of the word to the beginning. Now we have t, at. So we're manipulating the sounds. Phoneme substitution. So there's also a deletion. Let's say if we have cat, say cat, but don't say the k. What's left? At. So we've got then a deletion. We can also go cat, change the k to a d. What do you have? Dat. Keeping in mind that as we go along through this, that we do not need to use real words. We can use made-up words, because if we try to get kids stuck initially with just real words, then the word dat, at, is like, well, that's not a word. So now I don't know what to do. So it's okay. And as long as you're leading it, it's okay. The other part of phonological awareness is to be able to hear and manipulate the spoken parts of words and sentences. So phonemic awareness, the sounds and words and manipulating those. Word awareness, rhyming, syllable, onset and rhyme, all of those things are part of phonological awareness. So together, this is what kids need. And this doesn't involve print. Now, kids come to school with all of the phonological sounds, all the phonemes, all they're here. So now when they get to school, now we're going to move the speech to the print. So we're not there when we start here. We're not there. We will get there. We'll help them get there. Let's listen to Dr. Louisa Cook-Moats and what she has to say about letters and phonemes.
Most people even a lot of teachers we've worked with, as you know, will confuse the idea of a letter with the idea of a sound. Because we have a problem in English. We have 26 letters and 40 to 44 speech sounds to spell those. So, of course, you have to use letter combinations to spell some of them. And then we have several spellings for some sounds and several sounds for some spellings. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if we count the number of sounds in shoe, there are 2, sh and oo, even though they're 4 letters. Many adults, if I ask them to tell me the number of sounds in the word 6, will tell me that there are 3. They'll go s, I, x. But the way I count those sounds is s, I, k, s. And the way I would prove that is that sick has 3 sounds, s, I, k. And if you add a s onto the end of sick, you get 6. Mm-hmm. But it's confusing because we use 3 letters for 4 sounds. That's a revelation to a lot of people, but it's the most critical underlying skill that will help the children learn to read and spell.
She's my favorite person. Yep. Turn off. There we go. All right. So let's practice. Let's have a little test. Count the number of phonemes, and you can put it into the chat or turn on your camera and show me your fingers. How many phonemes, sounds in the word ice? You can type it in the chat or show me on the camera. Ice. Good. Choose. Ooze. Good. 3. Sing. Oh. Dissension in the ranks. Some say 4, some say 3, some say 2. All right, let's find out. S, I, ng. S, I, ng. So the s and the I, sure, that makes sense. But the ng makes the sound. So s, I, ng. So we're not using ing. And so it's very easy for us, especially as adults. We go, oh yeah, we know. ing is the ending. So that's 2 sounds. But in fact, sing has 3 sounds. How about thorn? Okay, so I think most everyone said 4. Who would like to demonstrate that for us, please? Anybody? Don't make me do it. All right, thorn. Or There are 3 sounds in thorn. Th, or 3 sounds. All right, how about quake? Quake. Quake, let's see. There are 4 sounds in quake, because even though visually we see the QU has to go together, because one doesn't go without the other, they make a sound together that is borrows from 2 sounds. A. So A. So 4 sounds. Pitched. All right, let's try it. It, ch, d. 4 sounds. Pitched. It, ch, d. Boy. Boy. B-oy. Fox. You should figure this out. They've got a little coaching from that video. So, fox. F-o-x. So X has also borrows its sound. It's x. Yeah. X. 4 sounds. 3 letters, 4 sounds. So really, when sounds don't match the number of letters, these are things we need to teach directly. And that's why when we rely on a word wall, we don't get that depth, that richness of understanding the language. So let's take a look first at the curriculum connections and why we're going to see that sound walls really lend itself to our K-3 curriculum. So I have pulled it to K-6 because there are some elements of the, well, actually from grades 3 and up that actually can meet those needs in sound walls. So first, phonological awareness. So the organizing idea then in phonological awareness is foundational literacy, is supported by the ability to identify and manipulate sounds in oral language. Okay, so with kindergarten, how are sound and oral language connected? And so these are the guiding questions. They experiment, they play with sounds. And in grade 1, it is about the manipulation of sound to support phonological awareness. And so when I go, what I did here is I put, maybe I should have highlighted it, but that's okay. In grade 1, the learning outcome is students manipulate sounds in words in oral language. In brackets beside there, what I did is I identified, I kind of adapted it a bit from the cusp, from the knowledge, understanding, and skills and procedures. So words and compound words can be segmented, so we're practicing that. We're segmenting beginning, middle, and end sounds. We're going to delete sounds. We're going to add sounds. And in grade 2, we are doing the same thing, but we say that consonant blends can be segmented into sounds anywhere in a word. Sound can be added, deleted, substituted. So there's a hierarchy of what's being done. Phonological awareness is not identified in the organizing ideas after grade 2. So in grade 3 to 6, we don't see phonological awareness as such. So these are the specific cusps from sorry, I'm just writing a note that I need to fix something here, that I went more into detail with the cusps for kindergarten and grade 1. So there's lots of things that are happening at this level that look at initial sounds, ending sounds, syllabication, segmentation of compound words and individual sounds and words, substituting sounds in grade 1. So lots of things that are happening. In grade 2, again, the cusps go more into detail, and now we're deleting and substituting consonants to form new words and so on. Again, after grade 3, that isn't there. Then, and I'm going back to structured literacy, remember, was phonological awareness first, then phonics and word recognition. And so that means that we're looking at decoding and spelling being taught explicitly by letter sound, morphology, and practicing decoding unfamiliar words. And it is using decodable text that helps us to support the learning when we're targeting instruction. Curriculum connections in phonics and word recognition. Here again, the guiding questions. I did a better job here. The guiding question the organizing idea in the K-3 phonics, because that goes K-3, but after grade 3, phonics isn't there. Phonics comes and places itself under conventions, but we'll get to that. Foundation of literacy is supported by understanding relationships between sounds in oral language and the letters that represent them. So kindergarten, letters and sound working together, and they start to make the connections through their exploration. In grade 1, understanding the relationship between sounds and letters, so the phonemes, and the letters, the graphemes, which create phonics. To increase word knowledge, and we want them to recognize and analyze letters and sounds and words. That's the outcome. So remember, the outcome is what you comment on in report cards. In grade 2, phonics refers to the relationship between sounds and letters to enhance decoding and encoding, so reading and writing. Students apply understandings of letter combination and sounds and words. That's the outcome that we comment on. And in grade 3, it's about phonics supporting foundational literacy development. Now, in grade 3, there is more and more work on phonics, word formation, and how that works in reading and writing. So this goes more into depth again with the cusps that I identified in each one. Sorry, you're going to get a copy of my slides, so you'll be able to access this and find this for your level. So I've gone into more detail by pulling it right out of the curriculum in the cusps of what they're to do. And remember, in kindergarten, first sound, middle sound, ending sounds, but it is about just making connections. In grade 1, it's uppercase, lowercase sounds in words, letter sounds. And so it is using short vowel sound, long vowel sounds. But how do we identify them other than saying, here's the short sound, here's a long sound. And we're going to use sound walls to help us do the work. And this goes into grade 2 and 3. And what is it that they'll be working on? And it goes more into this part. Whoops, I wanted to highlight that, but it won't let me. The last 2 sentences, that besides the beginning, middle, and end, and long and short vowels, it does say under grade 2, recognize how the letter R influences vowel sound, so R controlled vowels. And then there's the 120 most frequent letter sound correspondences. And I think, I'm going to go back. I forgot to write down, oh no, it's there. Right kind of in the middle of the grade 1 skills and procedures, recognize and use, where is it? Read 1 to 2 syllable words that include the 60 most frequent letter sound correspondences. And in grade 2, it is 120 letter sound correspondences. I'll show you where a resource, a suggested resource document is on New Learn Alberta. In grade 3, it is about consonant clusters, beginning, end, so like TCH and catch. And what are the recognize and apply less frequent consonant digraphs. And remember that a digraph is, 2 letters for one sound, like THs. And consonant letters that represent no sound, so meaning silent letters. But I'm not sure why they didn't just say silent letters, but that's okay. Represent no sounds. and so on. So we want to look at our curriculum in these two areas for basically K to 3. That is that sound symbol that is so very important. And then how do we build on that? Other than having, hey, here's a workbook, we want to have them actively involved in it. Now, what has happened here, actually, something happened here. That's okay. This slide, I have to admit, this is in, I have to move this. Because this should go into the next section, but that's okay. It's all there. This comes under spelling because the part of spelling that we're being asked to look at in curriculum has to come under conventions. So very often this is about our spelling patterns that we are teaching kids. So in kindergarten, where it's highlighted there, I put the cusps and the outcomes together here. Spelling of words can be remembered. High frequency words in speech writing may not have one-to-one letter sound symbol relationship. So meaning like the word the doesn't have a one-to-one sound. It doesn't go ta, ha, eh. It's blended. The, the. And in grade 1, this is where we look at patterns, building word families, including vowel consonant, consonant vowel consonant, vowel consonant with silent E, using plurals of S and ES, short and long vowels, and things that are not predictable spellings, meaning those high frequency words. So this is where I meant that slide should have come here. My apologies. Really, I'm usually much more organized. I updated some things, so. Anyways, written expression is also where you will find spelling referred to. So that is where in structured literacy, you find written expression, and spelling, that's where it's, the heading is under. So I'm just trying to make that correlation between the topics in our curriculum and the topics in structured literacy, and that they meet together. Let's listen to Dr. Moats on spelling.
I think spelling deserves much higher status in the attention of reading educators. Spelling is a visible record of language processing. It is language written down. If we know how to look at a child's spelling, we can tell what that child understands about word structure, about speech sounds, about how we use letters to represent those. And as it turns out, anything that is going to cause trouble with a child's reading will show up even more dramatically in the child's spelling and writing. So it's a wonderful diagnostic tool. It provides very detailed insight into what children need to know. And it can also tell us when children are gaining insight and what improvements they're making in their understanding of language. A nonsense word like pertalic or zaberfitty, or something that follows the patterns of English but that does not have any meaning, is important for kids to be able to decode and spell, because if you're able to do that, you understand the sounds in the word, the sound symbol correspondences that are used to spell those words, and possibly you also understand the structure of the word, whether it has a prefix, a root, and a suffix. English is very pattern-based, and people who are more proficient at reading and spelling nonsense, in fact, are better at reading for meaning. If you can't read up to speed, if you can't read fluently, you lose the sense of what the passage is all about. And many children who are poor readers as they get older are devoting too much conscious attention to figuring out the words on the page, or they're reading so slowly that they forget the beginning of the passage, by the time they get to the end, they get worn out. They want to quit, and they're just not able to pay attention to all that meaning we want them to get out of the passage.
So just an understanding then of just how very important spelling is. And that spelling initially, when we're practicing it again or when we're reading it, do not need to be real words. So in my job as a reading specialist, my job was to go to schools and do academic assessments with students. And then I would have to interpret what the outcomes of the assessments were. One of the assessments that I did was on phonological processing, but the other one that I did was on what it was called pseudo word decoding, which means basically reading nonsense words. And you have a number of kids who are word readers. They can read a whole bunch of words easily. But when they come to the nonsense words, they're not able to decode them because they don't understand the rules of sound, symbol, rules of language. So here we are. This is where the kindergarten grade 1 should have gone first, but we've done that one. So now we have conventions for spelling in grade 2, where we look at a higher level of spelling development and spelling patterns, vowel consonant, consonant vowel consonant, vowel consonant silent E, consonant vowel consonant silent E, vowel consonant consonant, vowel consonant, and so on. So we're looking at long sounds, short sounds, high frequency words, and words that are not following the rules. In grade 3, it evolves and we start adding and changing the endings, so Y to I and add ES, F to VES to show other plural forms, then contractions, possessives, apostrophes, and so on. Prefixes and suffixes start here as well. In grade 4, we're upping the game, adding ing, ed. Does that mean you can't do ing and ed for spelling at grade 2 or 3? No, I mean, you do what you need to do. And I'm just saying that directly in curriculum is not what was brought up, but that doesn't mean that you're not able to. We're looking at one syllable words, high frequency words, and contractions we're adding in. And in grade 5, we're building on that as well. In grade 6, we built quite a few of the spelling patterns, and now we're adding homophones. And by doing so, and we'll talk about homographs in a bit, and how we can check, what are the tools we can use to check the meaning of a spelling, or check our spellings and the meaning, but also we're changing the kinds of suffixes that we're going to use. And what do suffixes do to affect the meaning of words? And this is where we move into vocabulary and how it's important, but also that vocabulary instruction in itself is about meaning and morphology is about that spelling piece. So in the curriculum connections in vocabulary, in kindergarten, grade 1, in kindergarten, it is about just lots of literacy experiences. In grade 1, we're talking about tier 1 and tier 3 words. And there are no lists. Well, I mean, there are lists that exist, but they all come from the point of view of who develops the list. Suffice it to say that tier 1 words are the everyday words. Tier 2 words are not so everyday. So if we have pretty as tier 1, we have stunning as tier 2. And tier 3 is more linked to academic kinds of words, like science kinds of words that are specific to a subject area map. It also mentions talking about synonyms and antonyms. So then we get to grade 2, we start talking about homophones again and homographs. So homophones are about, they sound the same, and they're spelled the same. Homographs are spelled the same but have different meanings. I get them mixed up. We all know what they are. But graph is about the writing. So homophones sound the same but are spelled differently. Homophones sound the same but are different meanings. Anyways, antonyms, alliteration, onomatopoeia, repetition. These are, you know, when we say repetition, it's like saying extra, extra, rather than it a repetition of a letter. When in grade 3, now it is those synonyms, antonyms, and so on. But now we're also focused on the morphemes, which means we're looking at a base word, a root word, and the prefixes and suffixes as I've got listed here. Where do words come from even? In grade 4, we're adding in more suffixes to change meaning. And in grade 5, we're adding more prefixes to change meaning. And then in grade 6, suffixes, prefixes, but we're also looking at word origins from First Nation, Métis, and French, Greek, Italian, and so on. And what we want to do is we want to remember that sound, our language is sound. Kids are born, even before they're born, they're hearing sound. And so when we get to school, then we have to help them create a point of reference. So as we've used a traditional word wall, we're coming to know that a word wall maybe isn't the way that kids can learn to spell, to decode. As we look back and remember the book that we read on Pterodactyl, the worst alphabet book ever, that was an extreme example about how words don't fit into a traditional word wall. So what can we do better? How can we help the child that wants to read and spell the word one? And we say, go look on the word wall, but where is it? It's not under W, it's under O. So we want to move away from word walls, and we want to move away from, when we're reading with kids, that we get away from the 3 cueing system that refers to, does it look right? Does it make sense? Does it sound right? Or is there a picture that can help you with that? Because it isn't effective. And why isn't it? Because guessing is not reading. And if we take away all those things and we don't have someone there to support, how can we make it better? So why give it up and use a sound wall? Because we're going to move away from these cues, and the best cue is the word itself, according to Dr. Mark Seidenberg, who wrote Language at the Speed of Sight. Students need explicit and direct instruction on how to read, to write, and to spell. And a sound wall is a tool that allows for this valuable explicit phonemic awareness and phonics instruction. So it's based on the science of reading. Dr. Mote says, research finds that readers make the connection between print patterns and phonological information that is already stored in the brain when they come to school in order to make meaning of the word that they're reading. So this is a book that Dr. Motes wrote, Speech to Print, Language Essentials for Teachers. This to me is one of these books that we should be expected to read at university. It doesn't happen, but maybe that'll change. So as she talks about in her book, which is a pretty dense book, but I've had some experience with sound walls over the many years. And so when I've read her book, it went, oh, of course, that makes perfect sense. So the more exposure you have to the world of sound walls and you pull up this kind of information, the more it makes sense. So we want to explicitly teach phonemes because it's necessary before you teach the sound letter correspondence, always starting with sound. A sound wall categorizes speech that connects to sounds, so that sounds connect to letters, so that letters connect to words, which can make much more sense to the learner. So the 5 concepts, when we talk about the science of reading, I want to go through this really quickly and then leave you with a slide that you can connect to different things. If you're interested in learning more about the science of reading, it'll be there for you. First of all, reading is not a natural process. Sounds are natural because kids are always playing with sounds as they get older from the time that they're born. So we need to give instruction. We need phonological sound awareness to connect to the letter sound groups. And when we don't do that, that's where kids struggle. There is no one specific phonics program that is better than another program, but any program should have a letter sound relationship embedded in it. It cannot just be separate. Scope and sequence, things have to go in a very concrete sequential manner. And we want to stay away from embedded phonics instruction because very often the sound instruction doesn't accompany it. So we don't want to teach phonics in isolation. So the simple view of reading looks at the process of decoding is as important as the process of language comprehension. So the ability to do sound symbol is as important as understanding the spoken language. When we combine those, then we can get reading comprehension. So let's take a quick listen, very quick video.
When we think about the essential skills children need to build their reading brain, Goff and Tunmer's model, known as the simple view of reading, is quite helpful. In this model, the critical sub-skills of reading are simplified to their essential categories, decoding and language comprehension, and framed as a multiplication equation, with reading comprehension as the product, or goal, on the right side of the equation. The idea is this: strong reading comprehension results only when both decoding and language comprehension are strong. To illustrate this idea, let's assign values of 0 for weak and 1 for strong. If decoding is weak and assigned a value of 0, and language comprehension is strong, a value of 1, reading comprehension is weak because 0 multiplied by 1 is 0. Conversely, if language comprehension is weak but decoding is strong, reading comprehension still suffers. 1 times 0 is 0. Only when both domains on the left side of the equation are strong does reading comprehension become a strong 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. This simple view of reading tells us that children need to learn essential skills to decode to get text off the page, while also developing their understanding of the world and of literacy. Although reading is a complex process, this simple view is helpful because all of the essential sub-skills of reading, such as phonological awareness and vocabulary, can be assigned to the decoding and language comprehension domains on the left side of the equation.
So just keeping in mind then that it seems very simplistic, but the important thing to remember is that when we look at this from the point of view of assessment, and we have a student in front of us who is not reading well or not comprehending well, and we say, okay, they don't understand, there's something wrong with their comprehension. this can give us the opportunity to go, okay, is it language comprehension or is it decoding? And then do further assessments. And if we just say it's reading comprehension and we're going to work hard on reading comprehension because that's the problem, and we don't uncover what decoding or language comprehension, if that's a problem, then we're going to get stuck. The kid's going to get stuck. So that's why the simple view of reading is so very important. Phonemic awareness, remember, in the science of reading, looks at those individual sounds necessary for reading, and these can be challenging. So in the word truck, I often had a student come into the class and say, I got to ride to school in the truck today. And that's what they're hearing. And so that's what they're spelling. And so we need to support them in enunciating, but from the point of view of a sound symbol, truck. And that's not a natural thing. Playing with, segmentation is fun, but it's not natural without direction. Orthographic mapping is about the letter sound relationship and creating spelling from that. So when we have kids that are learning, we give them information and it sits into that working memory. And our job as teachers is to help build a filing cabinet with all these different file folders so that when students need something, they know which file folder to look into. And as we do that, things are moving into the long-term memory. So orthographic mapping is one of those file folders for every word. So it helps kids move away from just having to visualize or remember a word. So orthographic mapping, first with sound walls, we work on the sounds. To map it, we look at what are the individual sounds, and then so we're segmenting, and then we're blending. And we're creating a process by which the letters in a word, the spelling gets into that long-term memory. Then being able to retrieve it automatically works so much easier. So in the science of reading, what can you read? So I came across this actually just a couple of days ago in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in. And some people just love these, I think they call them bitmaps or whatever. So she put all of this stuff together. And so when I'm going to click on it so you can just see. So you click on it, and whenever you click on it, wherever, like for example, there, you click on that, you get more about the science of reading and all those little videos I was showing you. Here, you can click on speech to print. And speech to print didn't seem to have a link. But anyways, it'll take you to a bunch of different things that you can look at and find out if you want to know more about it, read more about it, like The Art and Science of Primary Reading, such a good book. So this one has become very popular lately. And I really encourage you to listen to these podcasts. There's a series of them, I think on Spotify and Apple. Those are the two. I usually listen to Spotify. Sold a Story, How Teaching Kids to Read Went So Wrong. Series of podcasts. I guarantee you will be amazed. So the 5 pillars of literacy that are built into part of structured literacy, but also built as the elements of literacy itself. All of these elements are under the National Reading Panel, and this was a meta-analysis that was done and published in the year 2000. And it was like 400 or 500 pages long. There are summaries that are a couple of hundred pages, and you can also go to individual summaries as well. So I've highlighted the phonemic awareness piece. And so this is chapter 2 on alphabetics. The first part is phonemic awareness and the second part is phonics. So the 5 pillars of literacy look at phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Now, even though they collected this from research that had been done prior to 2000, the research is still relevant today and are still our 5 pillars of literacy that we focus on. With structured literacy, we've added on to that. In particular, it talks about the phonemic awareness in the National Reading Panel on phoneme isolation. What is the first sound? So think of this as being familiar to and connected to our K-3 curriculum or K-6 curriculum, but in particular, those first few years. Phoneme identity, looking at sounds that have the same beginning, looking at categorization, what sounds go together. For example, bus, bun, rug. What doesn't belong? Well, rug, because the other 2 start with a B. Even though they all have an the other 2 start with B. Blending sounds. Ooh, what is that word? Blended school. Segmentation, we can break it apart. How many phonemes are there in ship? Sh, it, p. So in fact, there's no SH there, but that's okay. And this is, the last one is phoneme deletion. If I have smile, say it again without the s, what's left, mile. So you might find this phonemic awareness, these kinds of activities are familiar if you're using the Haggerty. So if you're using Haggerty, you're working on it. So what happens with sound walls is we're pulling in the next part of that. So they can complement each other. The phonics piece, that's the second part in the National Reading Panel in that chapter on alphabetics. 6 types of outcomes: decoding real words, and then reading nonsense words, because that's what I said, nonsense word reading is really important. Word identification, spelling, comprehension of what is being read, and then accuracy in oral reading. So those 5 levels of phonological awareness look at starting, we're playing with rhyming and alliteration. We're playing with sentence segmentation, the words in a sentence. The dog ran, the dog ran. Syllables, picnic, picnic, door knob. Onsets and rhymes, so cat, the rhyme is at, the onset is k. We can change that. Then phonemic awareness becomes the more complex activity where we blend and segment, delete and manipulate. So in Scarborough's reading rope, one of the things that we see is that the progression of the understanding of language comprehension has specific threads to it. Word recognition has specific threads to it. And so weaving together things makes things stronger. When things are frayed, that's what we need to pay attention to. Very often when kids are struggling, it's not always and not as often the comprehension piece, it's the word recognition piece. So language comprehension has background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. But word recognition has that phonological awareness, that umbrella, decoding and spelling, and sight recognition. But sight recognition isn't about sight words. It is about the sight word recognition for the individual. Let's take a very quick look at another video here.
Another helpful theoretical model for the reading process is Scarborough's reading rope, which expands upon the simple view of reading. Scarborough's reading rope provides a meaningful visual representation of the process by which decoding, or word recognition, and language comprehension subskills are combined during skillful reading. The decoding subskills are each assigned a strand in the rope: phonological awareness, decoding and spelling, and sight recognition. Under language comprehension, we need to build these reading subskills: background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Think of these subskills as strands in the reading rope that become stronger and stronger the more tightly the strands are woven together. As the language comprehension subskills grow and get stronger, the reader becomes increasingly strategic in their reading. At the same time, as the reader strengthens their decoding subskills, they're becoming more automatic in their reading. With increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic reading, skilled reading occurs and the reader can comprehend text. Skilled reading appears to be effortless, but a skilled reader has fortified the subskills of the reading rope in order to manage the skills simultaneously and automatically, resulting in reading comprehension.
So definitely, my sight word vocabulary is quite different from that of a doctor. Okay, oh, I might have messed that up. Something else I was going to do. So Scarborough's reading rope is really, really important. The other thing I would suggest when you get the slides is print this page out, because this is going to be your little glossary of a lot of vocabulary that's used in new curriculum that wasn't there before. The word phoneme, grapheme, so phoneme is the sound, grapheme is the letter. Digraph, 2 letters and 1 sound, like morpheme is the smallest unit of meaningful understanding. So the word cat is a morpheme. Cats has 2 morphemes because of the cat and this, because this changes the meaning. Phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, phonics, and onset and rhyme. And the last one is schwa, because I like to say schwa, because schwa in itself has its own sound that is identifiable. So when you look in a dictionary and you see a word pronunciation and the letter E is upside down, that's a schwa, and it has the sound of like in the word cup, though the sound of in cup is not a schwa. I'm just telling you that's what the sound is. So balloon, family, but so all of those are schwa. So let's answer some questions. What is the difference between a phoneme and a grapheme? Shout it out or put it in the chat. Difference between a phoneme and a grapheme. Anyone? The phoneme is the sound and the grapheme is the letter, written letter. The difference between consonants and vowels. Consonants have a voiced and unvoiced sound. So they're either quiet, like, or they're noisy, like d. And vowels are all voiced. They all have a sound produced by the vibration of the larynx. What's the second sound in the word quick? Anyone? Second sound in the word quick. So what? What are the 2 sounds that are represented? The 2 sounds that are represented by the letter X. So the 2 sounds, thank you. And what is the voice pair to the sound of t? D, d, d. It's actually the letter D. So the Anytime, and I should point this out now, anytime you see letters in between the backslashes, anytime you see the letters between a backslash, that means that they are referring to the sound. If, like in the others, I had quotations like an X, that's the letter name. Backslash, that's the sound. So the voice pair to the sound of t, t is d, d, same mouth form. And why do we use that? Because that's the sound. So Dr. Moats has a lot to say. She has so many videos on YouTube. And if you come across her name that she's speaking somewhere, go listen. So we need direct, explicit instruction. It doesn't happen by osmosis. That we have to remember in sound walls that vowels and consonants are sounds. They are not letters. Letters represent sounds. Letters don't make sounds. Phonemes are units of sounds. Graphemes are letters that represent sounds. Sounds can be 1, 2, 3, 4 letters of graphemes. So thinking differently, moving from speech to print through orthographic mapping. So as I like to say, and I heard someone say this and I cannot remember who said it, but reading is breathing in and writing is breathing out. How much time are you spending right now on phonological awareness, phonics, spelling, fluency, comprehension? Things to think about. Are you spending more time in one area or another? So when we work on a sound wall, we want to do it through a specific plan of instruction, remembering there are 26 letters of the alphabet, 44 speech sounds, 25 consonant sounds, 19 vowel sounds, but the combinations over 240. So we want to build on speech sounds. So we want to also rethink our approach to sight words, but we don't just put up a card in making a sound wall. So with sound walls, we look at things for vowels in what's called the vowel valley. With consonants, we put them together in partners. And so we have a quiet partner and we have a noisy partner. Some people in Lindenwood Lips call them the brothers. We can call them the sisters. The point is with brothers and sisters is saying that these are groups, partners that are related, but are not the same. And so here we've got a number of sounds like the letter P and the letter B in between the backslash, remember, are a sound. B, b. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about all of these things. And next week, that's where we're going to spend our time building. So Louisa Cook Moats has about 9 things to say. 1, awareness of speech is the foundation for learning print. Remember, sounds are represented by letters. Letters are not sound. Blending speech sounds, vowels and consonants is very challenging. We want to always do sound first. We want to teach the sound before teaching the letter. Articulation, we're going to use pictures of mouth forms and helping kids look at themselves in a mirror and being able to say, my tongue is here, my teeth are here. What's going on with my lips? Am I smiling? Am I open? Because there are certain sounds you can only make in certain ways. And even with kids that are little, they pick it up easily. The question was asked, what happens when we're working with older kids? Well, what happens is the rate is just faster. The other question I'm asked is, do I have to start at the beginning? My suggestion is to start at the beginning. So and we always talk about starting with consonants first, because consonants don't have a lot of leeway as individual letters. They sound what they sound until we give them different situations. Consonants are much more specific and are easier to teach. It's when we add in the vowels that things get more challenging. So my suggestion is always to start with consonants, and with the older kids, just do the consonants and then spend the time on the vowels. You could do the consonants in probably a week. Now, if you're using it for intervention, extend that time, because I've worked with kids in high school. A friend of mine, I'll show you some of her work in a moment, has recently been working with adults, and he had no idea. And so going back to the beginning was a revelation for him. And so I don't look at this as the baby stuff. This is important bedrock for kids to build on. So in the Lindamood LIPS program, you can have, there are a number of different mouth form pictures. I'm going to show you a couple of other programs. The Lindamood LIPS program for training and materials is about $1,500 Canadian a person. That is not to say that there aren't other options. I mention it because, first, this is what I was trained on many years ago. I used the Lindamood LIPS program for over 15 years in a classroom of students who only had learning disabilities, and most of their learning disabilities were at the word level. So a couple of things about that. One, this was a class of 18 students, grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they all, I shouldn't say all of them, about 80% of them had that diagnosis of a learning disability at the word level in word reading. That meant for other people to say, oh, they were dyslexic. So that's a very popular term that is used. It is not a diagnosis that is used at all not in Alberta anyways. In the diagnosis manual that is used by psychologists, it's only mentioned once as a footnote. It is not a diagnosis, just so that we're clear about that. That is meant to say then, this is an excellent program that I used for many years for those students. The other students might have had difficulty in the reading, or sorry, in the spelling piece. Some of them had difficulty in reading comprehension. So I did a lot of small group targeted instruction. In any case, what happened was I had these students that were able to move 1, 2, and 3 grade level, not level books level, but grade levels within 6 months. It was quite phenomenal. What I did notice is when it wasn't carried on in future years, they lost some of the skills. So repetition is really important, and continually pulling that thread. And we'll talk about how that can happen. So these pictures here show you the mouth form and where the air is coming from. So for example, there's a kid favorite called the lip cooler that goes. Now, just use your imagination as to what kind of words they want to come up with, or how they start using it with each other. Oh yeah, you're going to do that? Well, so just be aware of that. So lip cooler, where's the teeth? Where's the lip? Where's the tongue? And where's the air coming out? So they'll be looking in a mirror and being able to see themselves. And first they'll check their hair out and, so on. but they'll get used to it. And so those are lip coolers. Then we talk about this part. So we talk about using a mirror, but we're talking about this part as well. Some kids will put their hand down here and go, oh yeah. It's like, no, it has to be up here. And we play with and all that to feel it. And then we practice the lip cooler, oh, there's no vibration here. Oh, what is that? That's the letter F. Okay. Now we're going to turn the motor on. And so now we've got we've identified the letter F, and we've identified the letter V and the sounds that are attached. And we put up the picture. But we'll go through that more next week, because we're going to talk about what's the scope and sequence, what order do we do this in. And you can start with various programs, and we'll talk about that briefly. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I just want to get you through this part, and then we'll talk more. So there's a link here to a scope and sequence. There's a scope and sequence in Dr. Motz's book. Near the end is a scope and sequence. And then there's some other programs I'll show you here as well. So how do you do it? How do you introduce it? Well, you have to start slowly. So we want to make sure we have a scope and sequence. And if we're going to use the vowel valley, if we're going to use the partner letters for consonants, we can put it all up, but we want to cover everything up, because we can't just put it up and say, see, we have to teach the individual pieces. And so it should be empty, or at least covered up at the beginning. And you start and build slowly, one phoneme at a time. And it's about the lips, the teeth, the tongue, and the voice box, and how the air is flowing. And we need to use a mirror. So go get some mirrors. Go to the dollar store. Not that anything's $1 at the dollar store anymore. I was shocked when I went to get a bunch of things last weekend, and I picked up gift bags, I think it was. And my goodness, it said $1.25 for 2 gift bags. I get to the till, they charged me $1.75. And I'm like, wait a minute. Anyways, so these are things to start building. So a little bit at a time. This one comes from Tools for Reading. And notice the pictures. So you can buy pictures that have these mouth forms, or you can take pictures of the kids themselves as they learn the mouth form. So if you're doing the letter sound of, then take a picture of a student doing that. Put that up. This comes from the Lindenwood Lips program, looking at brother consonant sounds or partner sounds or sister sounds. I prefer the use of brothers or sisters because it shows that they're related, but they're different, like brothers and sisters would be. If we use partners, we can't really say they're related. So anyways, the point is that we have sounds that are voiced and sounds that are unvoiced, but using the same mouth forms. So we're not teaching this in the order of the alphabet. This one is directly from Dr. Motz's book. This is her vowel chart. This is where it is a bit different from the next one I'll show you, because this one has taken the sounds that are on the left near the bottom, the oi and the ow sounds. Those are called either sliders, ow, oi, or liquid sounds because it moves the mouth. The other sounds at the top all go in a particular order. And the idea is that sounds like smiley sounds start in the front, and then the sounds move to the back, which is why the vowel is the shape, vowel chart is the way it is, that it's half circle. So it's also changes here. E, I, A, E, A, oh, sorry, I, A, aw. Sorry, I'm choking a bit. O, ooh. And then our schwa up in the middle, and then our vowels on the right. And so as she's done already, would have done the consonants, then as she introduced individual vowel sounds, then she's got the consonant sounds and starts building, well, in this case, these are real words, but again, doesn't have to be real words, and builds these words to go under the sounds that they belong in. So it becomes a sound wall chart as opposed to a word wall chart. So, and it's not about first letter sound. Does that mean we can never use a word wall again? No, it's just, that's not the purpose here. This one comes from the Lindenwood Lips program. This is the one I was trained on. Notice that over in the bottom right, the sliders or the liquid sounds, I, you, ow, oi. And then you can start with the vowel system here by just putting the mouth forms, but covering them up, and then adding in the letters as you go along, like this. So this is just giving you an indicator of what that can look like. This comes from a program that has become my new favorite thing in the world. This is the UFly Foundations. This is the University of Florida Literacy Institute. It is an explicit and systematic phonics program, and it spends about the first 10 lessons. Guess what? Building a sound wall. All the lessons are in here for that. So their website as well has so many free things, including the mouth form pictures, the letters, blending boards, segmenting, so many things. It's so great. It's so great because from my point of view, the focus on phonemic awareness is so strong in that program. That book is about, I think it was $70 Canadian and $40 for shipping. So it was $110 when all was said and done. I know that if you get people together and order more than one, up to 10, it's still a flat rate of $40. So this shows their vowel circle, and this shows the consonant chart. The Facebook group of UFly Foundations on Facebook, if you join that, one of the biggest questions on there all the time is, what do some of these pictures mean? Like in the TH, there's that little box there, the little blue box you see, and then it's got these lines coming out like, oh, it's bright. The word that's supposed to go with that sound of TH is this. It's an arrow pointing down at it. And so today I came across this sound wall picture key that tells what all the different pictures actually say. So, all right, so you introduce the sound of p, b, and you introduce the sound of e, and you introduce the t, d, and introduce the I, and they can start playing with words. Give them the magnetic letters, or you can have any number of things. There are, you can just draw things. Anyways, this is from the dollar store. When I bought it, it's magnetic. Got little magnets here and a little marker. That was $4 a year ago. So anyways, so it's just a way to start building right away, going for sound to symbol and start building words, whether they're real or nonsense words. What is the exact title of the book? Because there is more than one book that comes up when I search UFly. There should be only one book. UFly Foundations is the name of the book. And it's UFly Foundations and Explicit. I thought I had that written down, but UFly Foundations and Explicit and Systematic Phonics Program. That's my new favorite thing. And no, I don't get a kickback from them. I feel like I should though. So as you know, you think, okay, well, again, is this meant for like the littles? And take a look at this. This also comes from the Linda Mood Lips program. This shows the progression of adding on. This is why I say when we start with a sound wall in elementary, in early elementary, and it's just those vowels that I just talked about. Well, this is the extension of that. This is how we start to build from year to year and support those kids, and especially if we're doing an intervention program. This UFly Foundations it's advertised as K-2, but because of the way they run their programs in the States as opposed to Canada, this is really grades 1, 2, and 3, and could be even 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as an intervention program past that, it's quite a powerful tool. So we want to keep our jail words short. Take a look at this video when you get the slides on heart word magic. We want to focus on patterns and mapping out those sounds. We want less memorization on rules, more recognition of patterns. So we want to match speech to print. We don't want to ignore meaning. English language learners will have difficulty with the meaning of very simple words. So if I said the grocery store was a zoo, well, the word zoo is not a difficult word, but what's the meaning of that? Why is there a zoo in the grocery store? So we want to practice the meaning and the processing of that. And whatever we do, we need to plan for it daily, setting aside time, lots of repetition, and using decodable books. I'll let you look at the link for the decodable books. It runs from kindergarten right up to adolescent. These are decodable books that support when you are targeting instruction and gives kids something to read. We don't want to use leveled books for this purpose because there's a big difference between leveled books and decodable books. But we know that the most common source of reading difficulties is poor phonemic awareness. So check out ERLC. We'll see you on December 7th. I'll stick around if you have any questions.